I'm so excited to welcome onto the First Time Facilitator podcast, Steve Demedio. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Leanne. So good to be here.
We've met because of the podcast. You've been a listener of the show for some time.
Yeah.
We had a great walk and talk. I'm sure I'll learn so much more about you in this conversation. Tell us about your facilitation journey.
Look, my facilitation journey, I kind of fell into facilitation, to be honest. It probably just started with me wanting to always share ideas with people and generate discussion about things that I'm good at and I enjoy. I sort of fell into it when I was in some sales leadership roles and just love talking about sales and love helping people be better at it. So that's how I first got into it. Started listening to some podcasts like yours, started hearing that there were better ways to get people engaged. Read some books. One book that really sort of got me into facilitating in the first place was, I think it was a Sharon Bowman book, Training from the Back of the Room. Absolutely loved that book, read it and went, oh, there are so many better ways to get people involved and walking away feeling really pumped from a session.
Fantastic. And you worked across, what kind of industries have you worked in, Steve?
Yeah, I spent a long time in travel, spent about 15 years in the travel industry. And then obviously when COVID hit, got to pivot a little bit and get a bit of exposure into some work with the government and some work with some big four firms, some technology companies as well. So got a nice little broad mix of working in that L&D space with a lot of different industries and a lot of different type of people.
Nice. Hey, just for the podcast recording, just then my video went off, and I want to say Steve handled that beautifully, like a facilitator would if there were any tech problems in a classroom. He just continued, and because I was going to go, oh, look, let's pause this. But Steve, I think it's such a great example. I mean, you're sharing about the industries that you worked in, but just let's pause on that for a moment and talk about that. What were you thinking when my video camera went off? Like the show must go on?
Yeah, look, you just got to run with it, right? I suppose that's probably what led me down the rabbit hole of being obsessed with facilitation in the first place was I noticed a lot of different trainers and facilitators really, really good at working off fact notes or facilitator notes. And then when things go off script, it's really, really obvious when people can or can't handle that. I really wanted to start sharing some of my own tips and experience there with being able to go with the flow as well. So that sort of led me down this little mission of creating some programs for facilitators and coaches to really learn how to facilitate properly and deal with all those curveballs. So it's quite funny that that just happened on our chat now.
I know. I definitely wanted to pull that out as a moment because if you're listening, you wouldn't have heard anything different. And I think that is the real skill of a facilitator. And a lot of the time, particularly on virtual calls, like tech can be a real issue. Look, if we are relying on slides in person, if the slides aren't there, then it is a real test of that, of having those curveballs thrown at us. What are some tips that you have for facilitators on handling those curveballs that you talk about?
Yeah, look, I think one of my biggest tips for any facilitator is to just be in the moment, then and there. And so often, a lot of stress and nerves, particularly for newer facilitators, come from worrying about yourself or worrying about sticking to that script or covering that content. And for me, it's just about being obsessed with the participant. Put yourself in their shoes and go, what are they experiencing? And if you constantly make it about their experience, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It's not about you.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that phrase, obsessed. I'm actually writing it down, obsessed with the participant.
Yeah.
Um, what does that look like for you? What does it mean to be obsessed with the participant or by the participant?
Yeah. I suppose if I'm to think of a couple of simple tips, one would be again, don't worry too much about what you're supposed to say or what you intended to say. If you're prepared and you know your stuff and you're passionate about having a good quality conversation and making it interactive, none of it matters. I think we get so caught up in covering our own content that it then does become about us and we're not creating space or time for people to contribute. So that's why I'm loving what I'm doing now is that I'm creating space for people. It's about stripping content, stripping agendas, and just making it more conversation based.
Tell us about that. I mean, I'm excited. I love seeing what you're up to, traveling around Australia and just these beautiful places.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you? I mean, that you're in your element doing this.
Yeah. I'm kind of just doing all the things I like doing. I
Cool.
sort of just got started doing the stuff that's really fun. I love travel. I've worked in travel for a long time. I love learning. I've worked in learning for a long time. I love experiences. I'm always doing experiences personally, but also with work. I love growth. I love connection. I love being outside. And so I've kind of just blended it all together and gone, how do I do all of those things? And I suppose just challenge the traditional learning environment of booking a room and sitting down and being talked at and covering heaps of content. I'm like, well, when we're outside and when we're moving and when we're connecting with nature, we're more creative, quality of conversation's better, and we don't have to cover as much stuff. I was actually just looking at some research literally this week. There was a recent study done just a couple months ago, and it found that people on a 4-day hike, after 4 days of hiking together, had a 50% increase in creative thinking.
Mhm.
And I thought, look, not that we can all go for 4-day hikes every time we need to get creative, but just that simple act of getting up, moving, getting outside, listening to some birds, seeing some trees, what that actually does for creativity is crazy. And I know, Leanne, I've been looking at you, it's literally sitting there right now. You've removed yourself from your traditional environment to mix it up and get like, what's that done for you? What's that done for your creativity these last couple of days?
Just it's been unbelievable, and I want to talk about this, but before we go to this topic, like 'cause we this will then take over the conversation because both we're so passionate about it. But
Yeah,
something that you alluded to just right at the beginning, I think that this is a really important follow up question. You've just said, Steve, you just designed a role, a career that includes all of your favorite things sort of peppered together. That is
yeah,
the goal of anyone, I think, listening to the show. And, it was a goal of mine when I was an internal facilitator and, you're struggling, like, why am I doing this? There's stuff that I'm doing that I really don't like. Not that we love 100% of what we do right now, but like,
yeah.
even just having the courage and the boldness to pursue what you're after. Can you just talk us through maybe how you made that happen? Because I think a lot of people around the world are just like, how do I do what Steve has done?
Yeah, look, to be honest, it's probably I still don't know if it was the right decision or not, but I am having a lot of fun. And I suppose it came from just a place of knowing that I can offer more. Like I've always been in internal roles and I just want to have more impact. I want to connect with more people. As cheesy as it sounds, I'm like, how could I have created something that unlocks more authenticity, connection, a deeper dive for people? Because so much learning and development, so much facilitation is so surface level. And we often just don't get the outcomes that teams need. So I knew I wanted to work with teams. I knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I just wanted to create space for people to be able to share the ideas that they've got. Business spends all this money getting people together and prioritizing face-to-face time. Yet we then use technology or lean on technology to whip through some slides or give updates. And like all of that was just driving me nuts, Leanne. Like I'm just sitting there going, why spend all of this money getting brilliant heads together that actually aren't able to contribute? So it came from a place of real frustration
Mm.
and knowing that I could do it and knowing that I could do it well and working with other, it's not even about me. I want to work with other people. And that's why we kind of connected in the first place is how do I help other facilitators make their experiences a bit more meaningful, a bit more inspiring, have more impact and be a bit more memorable? Because we've all been to conferences and events and they all just kind of blur because they're all the same. How do you just do something differently that stands out and is memorable and actually has some lasting impact?
Yeah, so cool. And I love that you even shared, like, I don't even know if this is the right move. It's so cool to see you in this ambiguous zone. It is an act of faith, what you've done.
Yeah.
So really exciting. And like, okay, let's go back onto this whole changing your environment thing. Cause yeah, as you said last week, I was like, I just need to get away. It was like an immediate urge. And so I was like, okay, there's not really time in the calendar, but I'm going to force time on it. So I booked this radical reboot. I'm at the Gold Coast. I didn't think it was going to be like, I thought, okay, Leanne, maybe it's a bit too indulgent. Like, do you really need this? Like, you've got so many other things to do, but it has been incredible. I can't even describe how good, reinvigorating, just getting out of your normal day to day is. I've got this beautiful view. I'm like overlooking the canal.
Yeah.
There's real power in that.
Yeah, nature just it rewires your creative brain. It just unlocks so much more. And there's a difference in getting away and having that nature connection or getting outside. I know you're sitting inside now and you're talking to me inside now, but I've noticed the last couple of days you've been for runs, you've been for walks, you've been using that environment that you're in for inspiration and creativity. And I think where a lot of teams get it wrong is they will book the offsite, but then sit in the crappy dark meeting room and not use the environment that they're in. If anything, it's even worse because you're losing all of this productivity from going away from work, and there is actually no outcome, or you're not creating that space to get creative. And creativity takes time, and planning takes time. And to talk about the things that we need to talk about, we just need to have less on an agenda.
Mm.
I'm going to assume that you didn't have 75 items on your agenda for your little planning day. You might have had 2 or 3 things that you're like, I really want to take a deep dive here, and I know that I need to prioritize time, space, and an inspiring setting to bring that out.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you don't really. I went in maybe with 1 or 2 ideas, and it's been interesting how that's been, how things have shifted. And I thought I'd be spending more time like daydreaming and journaling, but I've been like, oh no, I really want to just do things. Like,
Yeah.
and I've been able to do that, and not even have to worry about doing the laundry or anything like that. But like you said, this morning out for a walk. Yesterday, out for a run. When I finished in the afternoon yesterday, went out for a walk by the beach. That's all part of it. Like, it's not a separate. Like, it's not like, oh, this is like Leanne's rest time. It's actually part of it. It's probably the most critical part
Yeah.
is that time out to think. You're right. When we see agendas designed for conferences, it's like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., like get in the room. And then we'll
Yep.
throw these activities like in the morning optional walks. But it's like, how do we start embedding more of that in? So,
Yeah.
so what are some suggestions for how are you bringing more of that outdoor element into the sessions that you design?
Yeah. Yeah. One is not leaning on technology. So that's one of the first things that come to my mind, or one of the things that I've observed in so many different businesses is that reliance on tech, when we're planning, when we're having discussions or collaborating. So people try and nail that slide, or they make sure the imagery is perfect, or we end up spending so much time in that space that we either don't have time for conversation, or we don't prioritize the types of questions that we need to be asking this group. Because the power of those questions is what is going to unlock what's sitting within. I use a model that I've designed called extract, engage, and execute.
Nice.
So the kind of the approach that I take is, before doing anything, or before taking the deep dive, or planning, or making a suggestion as a team, or making commitments, we need to extract everything that's going on in their mind. So what are they thinking, feeling? What are those past experiences? What are those barriers, and what are the things that are going to stop them from doing the things that they need to do? We need to talk about that first. And then the key is engaging them in the strategy and the discussion. So not just going, okay, cool, I've got the information as a leader. Now this is what we need to do, team. It's team, we are together. Let's use this time to actually think about what's realistic for us. And then it's making sure you've got a really solid plan to execute. And it's not a one-off session. We need to follow up. We need to think about those next steps and touch points. So that's kind of like the type of conversation that we need to have. But as far as creating the environment itself, again, it's challenging our go-tos. I've been working with some clients recently that had ideas for venues in mind for offsites, and I'm more than happy challenging it and just saying that is not the right venue for you. When you're thinking about what you're trying to achieve, or the types of discussions that you need to have, we need to go somewhere different. We need somewhere where we can walk. We need somewhere where we can do these types of activities outside. And we don't need to worry about the meeting room. Often, again, we're so obsessed with the meeting room that we're booking and what that tech looks like. I'll say it again. I've been running a whole bunch of retreats and getaways and planning sessions for teams where we haven't even booked a room. This is where budget comes in too. You don't need to have tens of thousands of dollars to take your team away or have these discussions. I'll use botanic gardens and different venues like that in major capital cities to facilitate these discussions. Budget doesn't matter. Whatever your budget is, you can have an experience outside that's inspiring, where your people really contribute.
I love that. And
Mm.
I think what you said before, you challenged the client. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious how you do that. Cause I remember even working internally, like I went to an exec presentation and like, oh yeah, where are
Yeah.
you like submit your slides? I'm like, I don't have slides. And that was even like a moment of rebellion. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, how do you challenge a client? Like if you're, and even possibly tips for people that are working internally that want to say to their executive team, hey, let's try something different. Is it just that
Yeah.
the smiling Steve approach, the smiling
Yeah.
assassin? How do you challenge it?
Yeah, look, there's a few ways you can do it. One place I will normally start is really, really trying to understand the whole purpose of getting a team together. Because if you're going to prioritize face-to-face time, prioritize face-to-face time. So, one of the first things I'll do is challenge the agenda or the content. So I'll be like, what are you trying to cover? And once I really understand what they're trying to cover, does that actually align to the outcome? And if it doesn't, like I will often strip 80 to 90% of an intended agenda before I even talk venue, before I even talk anything. Because how can you possibly have quality conversation or take a deeper dive or take that chat where it needs to go if your agenda is so strict that you've got all these topics that sit within these little half an hour slots? You're not allowing any flexibility. You're not allowing people to really challenge what we need to challenge as a team. Again, we're ticking that box. We're going, we covered all of this stuff. This was the stuff that we needed to cover. So often my starting point for challenging a client will be content. Does that content achieve that outcome? And then from there, we work backwards and go, well, what's a venue that's going to work? How much money are we playing with? How much time are we willing to invest? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I love how like venue is like, it's the lower down the priority list. It's like, let's go purpose first, the content, and then what's the venue that's going to support and then, make that really come to life.
But one thing I'm super passionate about is
Yep.
the venue is off-site. It's not in your office. It's not in your day-to-day work environment.
Yeah.
That's a non-negotiable for me.
So Steve, this whole sort of passion, like our shared passion for movement, for getting outdoors, we're collaborating on something now as well. The red carpet camp out. It's going to be in March. It's a small group experience.
Yeah.
What excites you about this upcoming event?
One of the most exciting things is I get to hang out with you for 48
Oh,
hours. And I think that's going to be one of the most exciting things for anyone that wants to join us is like that quality time with Leanne, to be able to pick your brains, to be able to get some one-on-one time with you, to be able to sit in some of your very small workshops in a beautiful, inspiring setting outside. It's going to be magic. Other things that excite me, like I love camping. It's one of my favorite things to do. And this is sort of blending camping with that learning environment. It's not really camping. It's quite luxurious. We've got luxury tents. We've got a private chef. We're going to be sitting around a fire.
oh my
We're going to
gosh.
be doing some walk and talks. I'm going to run some sessions around using creativity and nature to get the most out of your sessions as well. But yeah, that's some of the stuff I'm super pumped by.
Yeah, exactly. I think just the group of people getting together in that environment. And I think I had a friend recently, she was meant to go to Dubai. She couldn't. And we were talking about like what she was missing out on, like the FOMO of missing out on event and like what's the
Yeah,
ROI. And sometimes when you sign up for something, you have no idea what the ROI is. Like even me booking this Airbnb, I was like, I don't know what the ROI is. I just need to get away. And I
yeah,
think what surprises you is you can't anticipate how good it's going to be. I think for this we can. There's a certain, you and I can both anticipate it's going to be freaking awesome, but I think it's going to be like 10x better than we even imagined based
yeah,
on the type of people that are coming along and the
yeah,
type of conversations. I love how you have a 3-part framework for this. Like the first one is like indulge, right? So getting in a beautiful location, private chef. Second part, inspire. So these conversations that we have, and then invent, like actually create stuff.
yeah.
So who knows what's going to emerge from this?
Yeah, and I think, when I say we've got this right, we haven't run it yet, but I think where we've got it right is that it's that beautiful blend of we've got some structured workshops, so we've got some time put aside for workshops. We're encouraging everyone to, or not encouraging, forcing everyone to contribute.
Yeah.
So people actually need to come prepared and bring some stuff, which is exciting as well. But we're allowing time and space. And one of the biggest things or frustrations when you go to even a really awesome event is that it ends really quickly and you get back to reality. Whereas we're removing ourselves, we're taking ourselves away off-site for 48 hours and we're immersing ourselves with people that also want to grow, that want to challenge each other, that want to learn from each other. And like you say, who knows what conversation is going to come from that and what we're all going to walk away with or what we're going to create as a result of it. And to me, that is awesome.
I think so. And it's a good time of the year. So like the first third of 2025. And a lot of strategy sessions are run around that time. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, again, DIY your own strategy sesh, but let's like soundboard it with other people as well. You've been to the property. I mean, I've seen pics. It looks incredible.
Yeah, so good. So good. And we've booked the whole place out. The food's going to be unreal. Really, really yummy food. And, you're sleeping out in these luxury tents. You'll be able to hear nature. You'll be woken up by the birds. We'll go for walks. It'll just be good for you too,
Yeah.
prioritizing yourself. and prioritizing that rejuvenation, prioritizing indulging in yummy food and wine or whatever you need. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the indulgent thing, like it's sort of, it's an interesting word because it's like being indulgent, being self-indulgent is not a good thing, but sometimes it is like, it's nice to have that feeling. And like
Yeah.
you link that to rejuvenation. Like I just can't believe how good I feel at the moment. When last week I think I was feeling quite scatty and like I was behind. Now I just feel kind of invincible. And it's only been 2 nights here, which is what we're hosting as well. And so, Steve, what's on the cards for you in future? What are you looking forward to apart from our experience together?
Look, just creating more experiences like this. I'm on a real mission to connect facilitators and make sure that we're using each other's skills and we can complement each other really, really well. Yeah, having a travel business makes it easy, able to bring these experiences to life and to collaborate with people. So keen to do more of that and so keen to work with more businesses that want to shake up the way that they go about it. If you want to take a deeper dive and plan really, really well and get awesome outcomes, please reach out. Love to work with you. Yeah, as I said, Leanne, just so keen to collaborate with you.
So excited. Yeah, thank you for reaching out. And of
Yeah,
course, like I always love asking, what would be your advice for first-time facilitators? You've already alluded to things, in terms of like reducing the tech and really thinking
yeah.
about the venue. When would you call yourself a first-time facilitator? Obviously, you've graduated now, but when did you kickstart your facilitation career? And like, so maybe that the advice that you'd give to that, Steve.
Yeah. Look, that Steve probably started facilitating probably, I want to say about 13 years ago. Um,
Wow.
and
Wow.
yeah, and look, he probably cared too much about what people thought about him and made it about himself. So again, those early lessons in it's not about you, it is just about them. And when that switch flicked, and I became, as we said before, participant obsessed. Ever since then, I just know that participants walk away feeling good after a session. They feel inspired. They want to do more. They want to take action. So for anyone new to this game, make it about them and don't talk about as much stuff. Have less content and get them contributing as much as you can from the start.
Amazing. And just one more question, because I'd love to hear how you prepare, like the morning of,
Yeah.
just the morning of a presentation. How do you get into participant obsessed mode?
I still get so nervous, it's not funny. And people are really
Really?
surprised by that. Again, it's because I care. I genuinely care about their experience. That morning, I'm trying to just empathize. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes and go, I'm about as a participant, I'm about to rock up to this session. What's going through my head? What are my doubts? What am I thinking? But the step before that is to try and build some sort of connection with participants prior to the event as well. So again, when you think tips for first-time facilitators, don't just rock up and try and build that rapport or build that connection. We need to be building that connection leading into the event as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, agree. Like Priya Parker says, the event starts before it has even started. I just love that. Love that line. Amazing. So, Steve, you'd love to connect with fellow facilitators and any businesses curious around booking what you do. If any listener would love to contact you and find out more, where can we send them?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn is a really great starting point. The travel business is Mind and Body Travel. The corporate business is the Mind and Body Group. So feel free to Google us or jump on the website. But connect with me first. I'd love to have a chat. Generally speaking, like with you, Leanne, I love to go for a walk to get to know you. So that's normally my starting point if we want to work together.
Yes, and we did a beautiful walk at Mount Cootha. The only problem was I forgot my self-flying camera that day, which we could have had like an epic. We had a beautiful photo, sunrise photo, but it could have been an elevated one, literally and metaphorically. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to work with you on the red carpet camp out. And if you are interested in jumping in and catching up with Steve and I, hanging out for 48 hours and having wine, sitting by the campfire, going on walk and talks, we'll put the details in the show notes as well as the details to contact Steve. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Leanne.
Awesome.